Hey everybody, welcome. Thanks for tuning in. Welcome to some of our new members who have subscribed here recently. Hopefully you're staying on top of some of these videos or posts, or at least finding ones that are important to you and relevant and hopefully benefiting from them. Typically I go over just kind of a range of different topics and mostly have a bench rest kind of orientation. But what I'm finding is that anything that I'm finding in my research, studies, experiments is widely applicable. In fact, I'm getting shooters in different disciplines replicating some of my tests. Certainly F-Class John, he published a test where he didn't clean his primer pockets. That's a test I did years ago, and he just did it recently, published it, and said, boy, cleaning pockets seems to be worthless. It doesn't really do anything. And it's like, yeah, it doesn't matter if you're shooting a rifle on a bench or a rifle prone. It's the same, it's what's called a generalizable result. So anyway, just wanted to say welcome to the new people. And of course, to everybody who's been here for a while, thanks for all your support, everyone. So periodically I get inquiries, questions, discussions, whatnot on velocity. It is data that I include in my tests. Okay, so if you see some of the experiments that I've done, in addition to reporting on precision metrics, I also will have ballistic metrics, and so people may draw the conclusion based on that I'm highlighting that ballistics are, somehow critical with precision. Now, I think that there is some overlap there, but not much. Like kind of the funny answer I give to people when they say, well, what's a good velocity for this, cartridge, bullet, powder, whatever. I'm like, well, anywhere from like 1 to 4,000 feet per second, It's like I can't tell you how fast a precision node is going, how fast the bullets are going to predict a precision node. Actually, all the evidence that I have accrued in all of my testing, all of my experiments, just general observations of having a chronograph, like sitting on my rest, or on the bench all day, watching that, looking at that data. I mean, just a wealth of information, basically, in a nutshell, says there's no such thing as a velocity node. But what I think, what I think may be going on, and why people want to conclude that there is I believe that there's a thing called an illusory correlation. If you've ever heard of that, it's where someone sort of starts to create some kind of correlation in their mind, like based on kind of anecdote, kind of what they're seeing, and what they're hearing from others. And once they kind of solidify that, oh, there is a correlation, then their mind starts to search for information that's consistent with it, and then information that's inconsistent with it kind of gets ignored or poo-pooed, or they just will engage in some kind of rationalization to themselves to dismiss information that runs counter to their beliefs. And how do they get to the illusory correlation? Well, if you go to a Precision Rifleman magazine, where you'll see the equipment list, if it's published, not all equipment lists are published, you will see a striking similarity in a lot of things. Like, first of all, you can see in this match tons of 6 PPCs. So right off the bat, 6 PPC is dominating. So that cartridge, and then you look at the powder choices, and it's pretty much N133 or LT32. You look at the bullets, they're pretty much all around the same weight, 66, 68. So I think what's happening is the similarity of sort of everything that other people are using drives this illusory correlation. So, for example, if I go to the match and let's say 8 out of the 10 competitors all are using the 6 PPC, using N133 and a 66 grain bullet, and I go and I put a chronograph on all of their, benches and record their shots, several shots. Guess what I'm gonna find? Take a wild and crazy guess what I'm gonna find. That they're all probably around, 3380 to 3420 feet per second. I mean, you're you're just gonna find like they all kind of are shooting around that range. Why? Because they're all using like the same stuff, So right off the bat, I think that this is the moderating variable that drives the illusory correlation. So someone could easily kind of go, oh, the velocity node is now, 3380 to 3420, and that's whatever, that's your precision node. And it's like, well, no, it's not necessarily. It's you're getting readings like this because people are using the exact same kind of components, powders, cartridges, brass pieces, and whatnot. So I don't think necessarily that this is like, oh, this is the precision node. Plus, even throughout the day, you start like here in the Pacific Northwest, you can start shooting in the morning when it's like 35 degrees, and by the afternoon it's 65. And I'm going to tell you right now, your velocity is going to go up throughout the day as it warms up and gets hotter with the same exact charge, the same exact bullet, blah blah blah. And so, but your precision could be the same. You're still shooting a low two or a high one or a mid one or whatnot throughout the day. So it's so even within a day, your ballistics can change substantially, but your precision stays the same. So anyway, just wanted to say, all the data that I get is very inconsistent with this idea that there are like you want a velocity range for which you're shooting. Okay, so I'm getting tons of inconsistent data for that idea. Brian Litz, and I brought his book to also sort of share something. And I'm not going to read verbatim because, again, it's copyrighted. I do encourage you to get these books. They are a wealth of knowledge. Now, you may say, well, Brian Litz is, ultra long range, and I'm only a short range bench shooter, or I only shoot 600, whatever. That's fine. I mean, the information in these books you may not believe are particularly relevant to you. And that's fine if you don't want to, get it. But I'm finding that this stuff is relevant to me, yeah, more so in the long range sort of realm. But I do apply some of the ideas into short range too. But one of the things that Brian tested in his volume 3 is the ladder, like velocity ladder testing. So I've also, and I know I'm gonna probably annoy some of you or piss some of you off because you're probably do this kind of test. In fact, I know some of you have done this test. What he found is he did that. He did like SD ladder testing, velocity ladder testing, and then he like repeated the ladder tests. And what he found was like they weren't repeatable. So you would do a velocity ladder test, find this flat spot. You know what the flat spot is. So you get, you shoot several groups, and let's say 2,800. Several different powder charges, and you see like the velocity. So 29.2 of, let's say, Varget gets you 2,800, 29.4 gets you 28, 20, 29.6 gets you 2830, 29.8 gets you like 2,900. And so what like this is just an example. Don't take any of these numbers for actuality, but I'm just illustrating. You would look and go, oh, look, there's like a flat spot here in velocity where it doesn't really change a whole lot. So your powder charge node should be this, because you want to find this spot where you've changed the charge substantially, a tenth of a grain, 2/10 of a grain, 3/10 of a grain, whatever it may be. But the velocities are almost the same, and they're certainly, similar. And then the ones over here are more dissimilar to these. And so people are getting this idea that this is your charge range. So load it to like 29.5, and that's your optimal powder charge. Okay, so what he found is like you do this repeatedly, and you don't really get the same powder charge. It moves. Okay, and then he also did with standard deviations of velocity. He looked at that too, and he found that that moved also. And so basically, and then he tried a different method where it was just let's just shoot several groups and then find some small SDs and like repeatedly fire that. And if they remain small SDs after repeated firings, then that's probably your best bet right there. Okay, so like so he kind of debunked this whole idea of velocity ladder testing by showing it's completely unreliable. It can actually drive you to do something that takes you out of tune completely, or the load itself is just not really a good tune. And so anyway, it's good information to have. It was a study, a rather extensive study that he burned quite a lot of powder, quite a lot of bullets doing it. So you may ask, like, well, then what do you do, Brian? Like, you can easily say that probably something doesn't work, but what does work, Sure, that's fair. So the tuning method that I've been using is just looking at precision only. So, and yes, I do have a chronograph. Yes, I do bring the chronograph with me. I am not necessarily bringing the chronograph to try to get a certain speed. I'm just looking at what is that speed, because when I go to dial on my elevation, I want to be sure that I'm dialing, the correct elevation. And then I'm getting darn close to it. You do not want to get to a 600-yard match, for example, and forget well, I wonder what I'm supposed to dial. Let me just take a guess. And then you shoot at your, at your sight or target or something, and it's not on. I'm telling you, you don't want that mental sort of set to, you don't want doubt coming into your mind when, when you're at that bench. You want that sucker to center punch as closely as possible on the first shot. Give yourself some mental confidence, etc. So I don't take that chronograph and use it to necessarily get a node. I'm just recording data on it, and I also use it to show myself continuously every single time I take a chronograph out that there are no velocity nodes, and then I look at the temperatures too, and I go, well, I shot this last month in 35-degree weather, and this was the velocity I was getting, and now it's 65, and I have the same exact load, bullet, barrel, blah, 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 primers and everything, and now it's going this fast, and it just kind of accounting. I look at that and I make mental notes of it in terms of like how much faster it's going. Do I got to dial down now, because it's now 65 degrees relative to the 35 degrees I was in before. So I don't take that data to use it to tune. I use it after the fact. What I do with tuning, and I've put videos on this, actually. There's a YouTube video called, don't quote me, but I think it's called Tuning Centerfire Rifles, where I go through my method, okay? And it's really, really simple. The first thing is I do what's called the known load method. So for 6 ppc, let's just take that for example. That's the simplest one that can come through my head. With N133 and the bullets that I use, generally I find something in the 29.2 to 30.2 range. Okay, so what I'll do is I'll load like 29.2, 29.4, 29.6, 29.8, 30, 30.2, so I'll go in like 0.2 of a grain increment, just when I'm starting off with like a new barrel, maybe a new jug of powder or whatever. And then I shoot 3 shot groups of each. Okay, so let's pretend I shot 3 here and 3 here and 3 there and 3 there and 3 there and 3 there. Okay, so right off the bat, then I look at like POI, like did POI shift? And usually what I find is with these groups, the ones that are not that are big, the POI is kind of moving a little bit. But then when I find here where it's dotting up really well, the POI is very consistent, okay? So some of the things that I see when I'm tuning is there's this kind of pattern that I call the 3-leaf clover pattern, where to me that's just out of tune. I mean, it's you can use it and run it and it probably will do okay, but it's kind of like just out of tune. And then when I get what I call the slanted verticals, I know it's out of tune. Okay, like that's a no go. Okay, so I can I can pretty much go to 29.2, 29.4, and even 29.6, where it's the 3-leaf clover pattern, and say this is kind of out of tune. It's getting a little bit better now. And then bam, I see the 3 shots dot up here once it gets to 29.8 and above. The POIs are all very similar. The group sizes are all, point ones in terms of MOA. And they're all round circular dots. There's no like kind of hole, they're very circular in shape. Okay. So they're usually small, circular, and same or very similar POIs. Okay. All right. And so what I do is I look at that and I just load right in the middle of that. So I would then just go, okay, I'm going to go ahead and load 30 grains of N133 with this particular bullet where it was seated, because it's right in the middle of the tune window. This is a pretty wide tune window where it's, 4/10 of a grain. That's good. And I'm going to load right smack dab in the middle of that puppy. And then I'm going to go load up, 10 rounds and do 2 5-shot groups just to confirm, because I do like to confirm. I have had it where this tune pattern emerges and then I start shooting 5-shot groups and then I start seeing like a flyer or something. And that's where I think at that point, like maybe I screwed up on my neck tension or something. And then I will reevaluate, I'll load a bullet, measure, check out my bushing, check out the OD of like a sized neck, and see, did I screw that up? Did I put the wrong bushing in, so having that kind of after the fact confirmatory check, if that goes well, those 2 5-shot groups are small, circular, same POI, they're looking great, then that's it. That becomes my load. If it does something weird with the 5-shot groups, then I go back to usually look at neck tension right away and just kind of, oops, did I screw up with the wrong bushing? And if I did, then I have to go back and like shoot this test again. You have to shoot the whole tune window test over again, with the right neck tension. Because it will change your tune window. Okay. So, that's another thing that I try to emphasize with tuning is neck tension is a set it and forget it kind of variable. Once you find the ideal neck tension that gives you the widest tune window possible, set it and forget it. Okay. But sometimes I do screw up, we're human. Sometimes I put the wrong bushing in there, or my notes, I looked at the wrong data book or so, that stuff happens. All right. Not a lot, but it does. So, that's why that sort of confirmatory, I'm going to go and confirm with a couple 5-shot groups here, is always a good idea. So there you go. It's tuning for precision only. And kind of like what Litz is saying, those velocity ladder tests are unreliable. They're not going to get you the precision that you need. And sort of my precision testing is almost kind of similar to what he was saying. I know he's much more concerned with small standard deviations because, yes, when you're shooting something very, very far, you obviously want the smallest SDs possible. I get that. If you're shooting, out to a mile or something, sure. But if you're shooting, 1, 200, 300, 600, 1,000, at 1,000, ballistics starts to become important, but I still emphasize precision over ballistics, unless, of course, I'm shooting out to a mile. Then ballistics, I don't want to say supersede precision, but ballistics have to be great with the precision at that point, okay? Anyway, all right, y'all, take care. Hope everything's going well. We'll see you.